And thank you very much, Dr. Fuchs. And thank everyone for coming here. And especially thank you for the rest of the Balabat team who are very close friends. That this restaurant should open up and be a Kiddush Hashem, an emes Kiddush Hashem for Am Yisrael here in the depth of the Golos. That all of the Yidden should eat good food, and good food should give them good thoughts and good emotions to love Israel, to love the land of Israel, to love the people of Israel, to love the Torah of Israel. And if food can give you love, if food really gives the proper love, then we'll go out of the Golos, as we just now heard. Schus of Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, and Meshalai Mehemna will all take us out of the Golos and give us the Torah Chadasha Mi'iti Tetzei, the new Torah of Melech HaMashiach, which is the pnimius, the inner level of the Torah that was given at Sinai. In fact, maybe we'll just continue one word. Those the three greatest figures, maybe, in Jewish history, who all of them passed away at that very moment of Ra'avad Ra'avin, the third meal, the Suda Shlishis of the Shabbos, and that's why we read those three psukim, Tzikoscha, Tzikoscha Yisidukadin, like it has to do with the Histalkus, the tzaddik passing away from the earth. Those three that all passed away, and just like Moshe Rabbeinu at that moment received the revelation of the 50th gate of understanding, which is the revelation of the Geula and Mashiach, and not just went up with that revelation, but at that very moment they were going up. They brought that light and that revelation down into our consciousness, into our world. Their initial letters are miyad. The Rabbi always used to say this to darshan, the word miyad. Miyad is now, techafu miyad, immediately. Moshe, Yosef, David, that is their siman. The schus of these three, Moshe and Yosef, David, all together, we should be zecher to Kviat HaMashiach and Zigula Miticha Shlema Techavu miyad mamash. The topic that I've chosen to speak about today, because of the fact of the different factors of hashgacha pratis that we have here, that we're now sitting in a new Jewish home, which is a restaurant. For all of those who were here maybe an hour ago, have been waiting for it to start. So just an hour ago, there are no tables yet in this room. So everything is like a new creation here of Yesh Mi'ayin. The most appropriate topic when you're talking about a restaurant is the Suda, the meal that the Jewish people, V'amech Kulam Tzadikim, all of the Jewish people Tzadikim, will merit to eat when Mashiach appears. And this is the passageway, the transition zone from this world to the next world, to the world to come, is the secret that Chazal speak about, we just heard about, that all of the tzaddikim said who's going to bench and who's going to bench on the kosher bracha, the wine, and David HaMelech said that Lina, that I am Rawi, and all of them were maskim, as we just now heard, that David HaMelech is the fitting tzaddik to bench on the kosher bracha of the Sudat Leviathan, La'atid Abo. So again, both of us from a chaven to the same topic. We have here in front of us, everyone should have a little chart. This chart is in order to describe to us the four components of this meal, Sudat Leviathan, as Chazal teach us, how they correspond to four different elements and four different dimensions of Ruchaniyut, spirituality, Jewish spirituality in general, which correspond to the four letters of Hashem's name. And at the end, we're going to also relate them to different cities, different sites, our holy sites in the land of Israel. Since, of course, the actual reason and the actual emotion that brings us here today is the connection of our people to the land of Israel. And everything that has to do with Mashiach and the world to come, all has to do with our strong and firm hold on our promised land, that land which was promised to Avraham Avinu. We have not yet ever actually merited, maybe only in the time of Shlomo Melech to a certain extent, to inherit totally. And even as we heard now just before, Yosef in a certain way is unique in the fact that he sustained all of mankind, saved all of mankind. It's a very important idea. And also Eretz Yisrael says that in the after Mashiach comes, first the land, the borders of the land will expand in various degrees, but the ultimate goal, the ultimate promise, is not just the promised borders that were given to Abraham, to Avraham Avinu, but actually Atida Eretz Yisrael Shetipashet B'chol Ha'aratzot. Chazal say that Eretz Yisrael will ultimately expand and become and spread around the whole face of the earth, and the whole world will become ultimately holy in the sense of Eretz Yisrael, the level of Eretz Yisrael. That is actually one of the reasons that Am Yisrael is here in Golus for so long, because we're preparing this place here, this very place here in New York, Manhattan, New York. We're also preparing it. By our sitting here, even though at a certain point we're going to have to all pack our bags, that's the expression. Everybody's going to have to pack his bags from Manhattan or from any other place that you happen to be, and to actually physically come to the land of Israel. But the very fact that we're now here, Bashkocha Protis, is because eventually the land of Israel will spread and will also come here. First, we're making that preparation right now. And once more, the Jewish people will, first all of us return to our promised land, but then we will have the power through our unity, our achdus, to make the holiness of that land encompass the whole face of the earth. And so all these ideas we're going to try to relate now to this topic, the concept of Seudat Leviathan, the meal of the Leviathan. The Leviathan is actually one of the four elements of this, one of the four ingredients, or the parts of the menu of this secret spiritual meal, which is called Seudat Leviathan. Very often we find in Chazal that there are just two things on the menu, which is the fish, the Leviathan, and the Behemot Ba'arei, which is the Shor HaBar, like the wild ox. And of course, these are miraculous, not natural animals. Whether or not this meal, let's begin from the first thought that a person will obviously ask: is this really a physical meal that Chazal are talking about, or is it a spiritual meal? One of our greatest sages is the Maharal Miprag. The Alter Rebbe, the Balatani, is the seventh generation descendant of the Maharal Miprag. And the Maharal Miprag devotes many, at great length and depth, goes into the secret of this, of what is called the Seudat Leviathan, of which Chazal say that all of the prophets in the prophecy were all talking about, all of the prophecy of the future, of the Messianic era, is all relating to Seudat Leviathan. What happens afterwards, Ayin lo ra'ata Elokim zulat chayas elim chakelo. No eye has ever seen. There's the ultimate, the absolute world to come, which is after this transition. This concept of Seudat Leviathan is a transition from this world to the next world. The ultimate end, no eye has ever seen, even the eye of the prophets. But all of the prophets have seen this transition state, which is referred to as Seudat Leviathan. So the Maharal also says that this meal is not a physical meal, but it's not just a spiritual meal also, something in between. It's an intermediate state. As we know, whoever studies a little bit of Kabbalah and Hasidut knows that most all of the secrets of Kabbalah have to do with intermediate transition states. Something in between, something which is in between, has it, the two sides must have it, two elements intrinsically within itself, one of each of the two sides that it is coming to unite. So here also, is this physical food, or is it spiritual food? Or is it not even spiritual food? The Maharal says that ultimately in the world to come it says tzadikim yoshvim v'atrotehem beroshehem v'nehenim miziv hashchina, that ultimately the tzadikim, which once more refers to the whole Jewish people, v'amer kulam tzadikim, will sit each one in his chuppah, in his canopy, and will be sustained forever and ever just from the radiance of the Shekhinah, Miziv HaShekhinah, without having to eat anything. Even spiritually, they're receiving light all the time. The light is what is eternally sustaining their being, but it's not any conscious intake of matter as similar to the function of eating. Whereas he says that there is the malachim. The Maharal Prague brings a machloket between a controversy between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel and the Gemara whether angels eat or not. Rabbi Akiva says that angels eat. They just have, obviously it's not the same food that we eat, but they eat. Lechem abirim achal ish. It's called lechem abirim. They have a special type of bread, which is lechem abirim. When it became a little bit physical, that's what turned into the manna, the man, that the Jewish people ate for the 40 years through the sojourn from Mitzrayim until entering into Eretz Yisrael. That was the spiritual food of the angels, which became coarse enough, tangible enough, physical enough for us to consume. But the angels themselves have this spiritual food that they must eat in order to keep on living. Even they themselves are called the living ones, the living beings. Chayot HaKodesh. Rabbi Shmuel disagrees with Rabbi Akiva and says that angels don't eat at all. Meaning that angels also in some way sustained that pasuk lechem abirim achalish did not refer, according to Rabbi Shmuel, to the spiritual, to some form of spiritual food that angels consume, that afterwards became coarse and turned into manna. He says that angels themselves don't have to eat at all. But with this, I'm going through a little bit in short of what the Maharal says about different levels of food. There's physical food that we eat now in this world. There is spiritual food which became physical enough for us to consume, just like the manna in the desert. It had different physical properties altogether. According to Rabbi Akiva, there's food which angels, totally spiritual food that angels eat. According to Rabbi Shmuel, they don't eat food at all. Higher than all is the true level of the world to come, of which it says no eye has seen whatsoever. Ayin lo ra'ata elokim zulatcha. Tzadikim yoshvim, the tzadikim will sit and will just sit and live eternally in the radiance of the divine presence, the Ziv HaShekhinah. So for this a little bit of background, that there are different levels of consuming food. And this Sudat Leviathan is an intermediate. It's similar, once more now quoting from the Maharal, it's very similar to had Adam merited to eat in the Garden of Eden from the tree of life. Had Adam HaRishon been able to eat from the tree of life, not the tree of knowledge of good and evil, from the tree of life, what does it say? V'chai lo'olam, he would have lived forever. So that's very similar to the eating of this Sudat Leviathan. That this is eating one tremendous, delicious meal and living forever on this food, not having ever again to eat again. What does it remind us of in the Tanakh? It reminds us of the story of Eliyahu Navi, that before he was sent to Har Chorev, to Har Sinai, just like Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem gave him actually a small meal to eat, and Hashem said that this meal will now sustain you for 40 days and 40 nights, not just as Moshe Rabbeinu was on the mountain for that period of time, but actually he had to sojourn, he had to walk. He had to take a very, very difficult trip. And that whole trip he didn't have to eat or drink, because he was sustained from that food that Hashem gave him, a special secret meal that Hashem gave him before, and they said, now go and walk 40 days and 40 nights until you reach Har Sinai. And then he also merited through a revelation at Har Sinai, which was similar to the revelation of the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai. Obviously, Moshe Rabbeinu, it doesn't say explicitly that before Moshe Rabbeinu went up to the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, he had a special meal to keep him going. But that may be so, just like Eliyahu Navi. In any event, the idea of this meal is that this is a meal which will keep you going forever, because it's just like v'achal me'etz ha'chayim v'chay la'olam. If you eat from the tree of life, he will live forever. So this is also a very beautiful kavanah. Whenever a Jew has a meal, especially on Shabbos, especially on Shabbos Shudas on Shabbos, if we would merit, we know that in Shabbos Shudas on Shabbos there are different minhagim, different customs whether to eat it or not to eat it. The highest, actually physically or not, that in a certain way relates to this machlokas between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel Bichlal. What that Suda Shlishis is it a physical meal, is it a spiritual meal, something in between? Our kavanah even here, Alavai, in other words, if we would eat properly, we would have our Sudas Leviathan right now, so that would be, for us, would suffice physically forever and ever. The Jew should have a Jew is chaval that you have to eat 3 times a day. How nice it would be if we just have now just one last meal, and that's enough to keep us going, to take us back to Eretz Yisrael, to bring us Mashiach, and to keep us going forever. L'chai lo olam. But this is the concept. This is like the feeling. I'm trying to convey a little bit of what the feeling is of Sudat Leviathan, which should be for a Jew, in a certain sense, the feeling every time he sits down to eat. Just like every day we hope that Mashiach will come right now. So every meal that you eat, you should hope maybe this is Sudat Leviathan, or maybe it really is Sudat Leviathan. And then we're going to have all of our 4 ingredients here of the menu of the Sudat Leviathan, and that will keep us going forever and ever. So after this introduction, it should be very clear that eating this meal, Sudat Leviathan, is integrating into our very consummation. Consuming is integration. Is integrating into our very being our ultimate divinity, which for a Jew is expressed by the 4 letters of Hashem's name, Yud Kei Vav Kei. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Just like when we meditate is also an integration process. Shmiata here means to integrate, to absorb into one's heart, into one's essence. In the same way, when we eat, it's also an integration process. In fact, even the root achal in the Mesurah, maybe make a statement by the way, a parenthetical statement, that one of the most basic roots in the Hebrew language is the root to eat. Achal. It's so basic that in the Mesurah of the Tanakh, in many lists of words, of vocabulary of the Bible, this is the first root. In a certain way, it's the most basic root in the Hebrew language, to eat. Why? What's so basic about achal, aleph, chaf, lamed? Is in a certain sense, it hints to the fact that aleph, kol, one is all is one. Achal is aleph, kol. There's something about eating that once more, if we would eat properly, we would be inspired by consuming the food itself, that one is all, and all is one. So basic is this root in the Hebrew language, achal. It's once more, what is that one which is all, and the all which is one? It's Hashem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem Echad, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Once more, this is all just to explain why the 4 ingredients, and sometimes the whole Suda is just called by one word, Sudat Leviathan, which is the first of the 4 ingredients. Very often, we find just 2 ingredients referred to, which are the Leviathan and the Behemot, the Shor HaBar. But in certain places in Chazal, and once more going back to the Maharal that we were quoting before, he brings all 4 ingredients. that the four things that we eat in this Sudat Leviathan are the Leviathan and the Shor HaBar. I'm not now reading them in order. And a miraculous, there's all these miraculous animals, like legendary, let's call them, for lack of a better word, animals which are not from this world. And the Leviathan, Chazal say, were originally created in the beginning of creation. On the fifth day of creation, the two Leviathan, a male and female, and they were so big. It's not the whale that we know of now in our world. It's a fish which was so tremendous and so big that would they have had a progeny, it would have destroyed, was overtaken and destroyed the whole earth. So what did Hashem do? Hashem killed the female and prepared the female by salting her for this Su'udah. Hashem on the fifth day of creation prepared this Su'udah of the future, as Rashi himself brings. So when the whole Su'udah is called after the Leviathan, but then there is the meat, the Shor HaBar, but there's a third animal, miraculous animal. Again, the Shor HaBar is also miraculous. It's such an animal that it eats the grass of 1,000 mountains every day. Behemot Bahare Aleph. It consumes 1,000 mountains of grass every day. That's the Behemot Bahare Aleph. It's quoted, the Behemot as well as the third one, the fowl, the bird, the miraculous bird, they're actually quoted in Psalms chapter 50. Behemot Bahare Aleph, Viziz Sadai Imadi. This is the third one. Yadati Kol Oth Harim. There's a verse in chapter 50 in Psalms, in Tehillim, that Hashem says, Yadati Kol Oth Harim. I have known all of the fowl, all of the birds of the mountains. Viziz Sadai Imadi. This miraculous bird, which Chazal say that when it spreads out its wings, it covers the whole sky. But the whole face of the sky is covered and darkened when this bird spreads its wings. It's called Ziz Sadai. And once more, it's mentioned 2 times, both in Psalms. The most important time is the first time in chapter 50, in this verse that we just now quoted, Yadati Kol Of Harim, Viziz Sadai Imadi. That's the third ingredient of the Sudat Leviathan. What is the fourth? The fourth is you can't eat v'achalta v'savat. You have to eat and be satiated. As I'll say that eating is the food and satiation is the drink. There must be sfi'ah. What is the sfi'ah? The sfi'ah is yayin hameshumar ba'anavad misheshet yimei breshit. The wine that was also created on the third day of creation, when all of the vegetation was created on the face of the earth. That wine that is there waiting in its grapes from the 6 days of creation, which is the oldest wine on earth, that is the fourth ingredient of the Su'udah. Yayin hameshumar ba'anabav misheshet yemei breshit. Right, so now the question is, how do these 4 ingredients then correspond to the 4 letters of Hashem's name and the 4 concepts in the soul that they themselves parallel? The fish is chokhmah. The fish has open eyes. Many tzaddikim, probably many of us have heard, on all of the sudas of Shabbos, when you eat a Shabbos meal, so you begin with fish. And many great tzaddikim always used to eat the very first thing in the Shabbos meal, the 2 eyes of the fish, because the eyes of the fish are called Eina Pkicha, the open eye, the open visible eye. As we'll explain in a moment, in the Torah, all of these ingredients, components, correspond to different levels, different dimensions of the Torah. That corresponds to the pnimius of the Torah, the most inner dimension, the hidden, concealed dimension of the Torah. Just like a fish is concealed under the water, the fish corresponds to the concealed level of the Torah, nistar shebatorah. Its eye is always open. it's always revealed that there's hashkocha protis. Dafk in the depths of the abyss of the sea, mishpatecha Om Rabba, that's the very same verse of Tzidkoscha that we read, one of the first, those three verses that were just mentioned before. The first of those three verses reads Tzidkoscha, kahar rekel, mishpatecha tehim rabbo, odom adamu behimatu shia Hashem. And from the second phrase of that first verse of Tzidkoscha that we read, mishpatecha Om Rabba, your judgments are in the depths of the abyss. That is the verse, the origin, the source that Chazal learned from, that in the depths of the sea, which fish will swallow, will eat, will consume which fish, all takes place by Hashkocha Pratis. I mean, the ultimate, we know that there's even amongst the Rishonim, there's a machlekes of how much there is a revelation of Hashkocha Pratis in the animal world, and certainly in the inanimate world. The Ra'aya, the proof that is always brought from the Talmidei Baal Shem Tov and Hasidus, the Alter Rebbe, and on, in the Gemara, that our sages themselves have indicated there is definitely revealed Hashkocha Pratis on every creation. Every single one of God's creations is from this verse. The first of those three verses that we read on Mincha Shabbos. From the phrase, Mishpatecha Tohom Rabbah. Your judgment is visibly revealed in the depths of the sea. Also has to do with the open eyes of the fish. There's something dafk in the concealed world, in those open eyes. What's more, the first thing that a tzaddik wants to eat, the first thing that a tzaddik wants to eat is the eyes of the fish, because he wants to become one. As we said, that eating is aleph kol aleph. He wants to become one with the secret of the eyes of the fish. That's called the open, that reflects or indicates to us the open, the ever open eye of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hashem. It's never closed, and once where the hashkocha poses in every single most minute detail of creation. That open eye, the secret of the eye in Kabbalah's Chokhmah's wisdom. The wise are called Inei Haida, the eyes of the congregation, the eyes of the people. The fish, and his eyes especially, and what that represents is Chokhmah. And in the soul, Chokhmah is always identified in Hasidus with bitul, self-nullification. Meaning that eating fish, that's what now we're trying to give kavanah. The Rambam himself says that when a person eats, he should eat from kal el kaved. This is one of the basic statements of good health that the Rambam teaches us. That one should eat from lighter things to heavier foods, meaning that one should begin with fish, as the Rambam says, and then continue with fowl, and then conclude his meal with meat, because that's the progression. It's just we know that as on our Shabbos meals themselves, what do we do between the fish and the fowl and the meat? We drink wine, l'chaim. So that order is exactly the order according to Kabbalah. That the fish is the order milamala lamata, the order of Yudke Vavke. The fish corresponds to Chokhmah, meaning that, and even during the week. We're also in the tzaddikim, v'amet kudam tzaddikim, we're all supposed to be tzaddikim. The tzaddikim are at a state of Shabbos, are experiencing Shabbos throughout the whole week. So every time that you eat fish, eating fish is the level, but not only when you're eating the fish's eyes, even if you're eating some other part of the fish, relative to all other food that one eats, the fish is the open eye. The fish is hashkocha pra. The fish is wisdom, and the fish in the soul has to do with bitul, with self-nullification, nullifying one's will to solely live by God's will. That's eating fish. Also, the fish corresponds to the yud as we see it. Because now I'm going through what is written here on the chart in front of us. As we said, that after eating the fish, between the fish and the fowl and the oath, so one drinks something. It's the Minhag Yisrael. Drinks wine. And that wine, the wine will also return at the very end, as we said before. As we heard before, that David Ameda blesses at the very end of the meal, Birchas Hamazon, and blesses the Kesha Bracha over the wine. But the wine, the first appearance, and the secret of the wine is the second level of the meal, between the fish and the fowl. And what is wine? What is the property of wine? Wine is supposed to make you happy. Very, very simple. Yain mesameach Elokim v'adam. Wine makes even God happy, it says. Both God and man, it makes happy. Simcha is im habonim smech. That's the second level of Hashem's name. That's more eating the fish is bitul, is chokhmah, the yud of Hashem's name. Thereafter, drinking the wine is the first hay of Hashem's name, which is becoming happy. There's another very important thing about becoming happy, that when a person becomes happy, especially by drinking wine, Chazal say, Nichnas yain etz hasod. When a person is very, very exuberantly happy, so he starts revealing inner secrets, or psychological things. It says that the soul of every Jew is how much I love every one of you. That's the secret. It says the soul is a very famous Hasidic principle. That every secret has, what is my secret? What is the secret of every Jew? So Hasidim used to always say that the secret of every Jew is Avos Yisrael, how much I love you. Not always is he conscious of his own secret. That's the problem. Why do Hasidim farbring? Why do they come together and drink? In order to reveal the secret. The correspondent, it says about non-Jews, especially about Esau. Esau also has a secret. His secret is achar b'chotichya. That's what it says in the Hasidim. His secret is you live by the sword. What does it mean you live by the sword? Not only that you live physically, but you get chayus, which is also simcha. All of your chayus, all of your viability and your good feeling of life for Esau comes from the sword. But and that's his secret. Again, he also is not always conscious of that. If he drinks, it usually comes out. It is chayus he gets from the sword. Achar b'chotichya. Whereas a Jew, his chayus and his simcha, he gets from loving other Jews. Avos Yisrael. That's the secret. So once when that secret is born, just like we know that Bino, the mother, the second level of Hashem's name, the first hay, is called the mother figure. The mother figure is pregnant. And something has to be born from the pregnancy. What is born from the pregnancy is loving the Jewish people, loving the land of Israel, loving everything that a Jew intrinsically loves. That's the secret which comes out of the happiness of drinking wine. So once more, this is a kavanah that one should have all of the time. That's what we should be doing when we're drinking. What is number 3? So again, number 3 is of all these ingredients of the menu of Mashiach, of the Sudat Leviathan, this is the most relatively unknown one, this fowl, the Ziz Sadai, the Ziz Sadai Madi. That Ziz Sadai, as we'll explain, which will be the conclusion of our words, has to do with Yosef HaTzadik and Shechem. Because in Kabbalah it says that the bird, the ideal or the great bird, is Joseph. The hint is that the word Of itself equals exactly Begemat Yosef, which is 6 times Hashem's name. 6 times 26, 156 equals Yosef, equals Of. Those 6 times 26, 6 times Hashem's name, correspond to all of the 6 levels of the heart, all the 6 emotions of the heart, which all blend together and come together in the last of the 6, which is called Yesod, the foundation, which explicitly refers to Yosef. But actually he contains a whole spectrum of 6 different levels. Chazal say, why is this bird called Ziz? What kind of a strange word is this? Is this the name of this bird? The word Sadai, the second word in the phrase, means field, of the fields. But his proper name is Ziz. What kind of a word is that in Hebrew? So we'll explain a little bit more, but the simple thing that Chazal, it's not so simple, the drush, the interpretation that Chazal give to this word, this name Ziz, mizeh umizeh. They treat it as a notrikun. It has in it a very rich variety of tastes to it. Just like the Slav in the Midbar, you can taste whatever type of taste you want. There's a whole spectrum of tastes that it includes. Mizeh u'mizeh. The word ziz also has to do with mezuzah. Mirza Hashem, we're going to put up here a mezuzah on the door. It's the same root. What does mezuzah mean? Mezuzah has to do with zaz. Mezuzah is the only mitzvah in the Torah which we bench when we make the blessing of the mezuzah. We say the kibbutz mezuzah to fix firmly a mezuzah, and paradoxically, the word itself means to move. That's what it's coming from, mazuz. So it's explained in Chassidut, Kabbalah, and Chassidut that the true secret of the mezuzah is koach haminiya habilti mitnoeya. That power which makes everything move, but it itself is firmly static, as it were. Just like it says, like the Rambam in the beginning, the Rambam says that the koach, which is misovevet hagalgal, the divine power which would make everything in the universe revolve and move, it itself is firmly fixed. That power is reflected, is revealed in the mezuzah. Mezuzah means makes, it doesn't mean that it moves, it makes things move. It also controls going in and going out, and it controls it in such a way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hashem is guarding you, looking over you. Hashem yishmor tzitcha uvoecha mi'ata v'ad olam. We say Hashem will guard your going out and your coming in. That power is inherent in the mezuzah. In Hasidut, the concept of motion, there's a phrase, a very important phrase, which is called hazazah atzmit. Hazazah atzmit, when a person has to make some, let's call it an existential change in his life, like Chazara b'tshuva or some other, all kol yamav b'tshuva. A person makes some true movement. Most movements, even though there is a certain amount of free choice in whatever one does in his life, but many movements are natural. It's called b'seder v'adraga. It's not b'dilug. It's not like taking an existential leap into a new state of being. When a person does, and sometimes this only happens occasionally throughout one's whole life period, but for Hasidim it's supposed to happen frequently. When a person takes an existential leap in his life, that's called moving. It's called an essential movement. This phrase for the one's called is called hazazah atzmit. So there must be something inherent in this bird, in this fowl that with the third thing that we eat, which has to do with Yosef HaTzadik, and it gives the soul, the Jewish soul, to make these existential leaps. There's also something else about this word ziz, and that's what it says here, hazazah atzmit, chotam bolet. There's another thing, ziz, in Chazal, in the Hebrew of the sages, ziz is like a porch of a house, which is some building, some construction which shoots out of an existent construction. That is called chotam bolet, is the phrase for that, as is written here. Chotam bolet means something which is shooting out. It has to do with Sfirat HaYesod, the Ot Brit Kodesh, which is represented by Yosef HaTzadik. Which also, what does it mean? It means that when a person is in his life making this, some great new motion, new movement, but some existential leap in whether it's the life of an individual, even more so, and more immediate for us, the life of the people, of our Jewish people together, that we have to, let's move. We're asleep, we're dormant. We have to move. That's coming from this oaf, which is Yosef HaTzadik. And Yosef is called the Chotam Bolet. There's, in this motion itself, there's, to a great extent, an expression of self, just like Chokhmah, the fish is under the water, is selfless. You have to begin, a Jew has to begin from selflessness, which is the Leviathan, the beetle. But at this level of Zisadai, in a certain sense, there's an opposite motion. There's a motion of assertion of self. Like the Jewish people has to assert itself. That assertion of self in order to bring Kedusha into the world. That's called chotam bolet. That's the expression in Kabbalah. That's the second meaning in the Hebrew language of this word, ziz. Ziz sadai v'ziz sadai madi. That very phrase in Tehillim that says that Hashem is saying, v'ziz sadai madi. This fowl, this bird is with me. The phrase has 3 words to it. The average value of those 3 words is Yosef. V'ziz sadai imadi equals 3 times Yosef, 3 times Uf. As it said in the beginning of the verse, Yadati kol Uf harim. The word Uf appears just before V'ziz sadai imadi. And the last one is the behemot. This is already the meat, the beef, which has 2 names, either behemot, which just means it's one, but it's the plural of animal, the epitome of animal, or Shor HaBar, the wild ox. Just as the Leviathan is the sea creature, which represents the concealed level of being and the concealed level of the Torah, in the same way this land animal represents the revealed level of the Torah. What the fight, the war amongst the souls is between the first and the last. How does the Sudat Leviathan begin according to Chazal? That there's a war, Hashem makes a war, a fight between the Leviathan and the Behemot, and each one at the end kills the other. Or Hashem directs the killing, the slaughtering of one another, and that they all become part of the menu of the Sudat Leviathan. What is that war all about? It says that war is like the war between Talmidei Chachamim, those that are more connected in accordance with the origin of their souls with the inner part of the Torah, which are called Nunei Yama, the fish of the sea, like Moshe Rabbeinu min hamayim hashitiyu, and those who are more involved, once more based upon the source of their souls with the revealed part of the Torah. And the meaning of this fight is not an antagonistic fight. It's a fight like Milchamta shel Torah, ve'et vahev besufa. It's a fight in order to achieve love between these 2 opposite factors. So there are 2 in our people, in even the great sages of our people, there are 2 opposite natures. There's the nature of the sea being, and there's the nature of the land being. And the nature of the sea being is Kabbalah, let's call it. And the nature of the land being is halacha. And neither one wants to negate chas v'shalom the other. But they don't jive with one another. They have 2 different characters. Their characters do not connect. The meaning of this war in the future that Hashem conducts between the 2 of them is in order to ultimately bring them together and make them one. It says that the initial letters of these two antagonists, as they were, Leviathan Behemot, the initial letters are Lev. In fact, in one place it says that the last letter of the Torah is a Lamed, which is the Lamed of Leviathan, and the first letter of the Torah that we have to embed or wedge, Na'ut Sofan B'Tchilatan U'Tchilatan B'Sofan, the first letter is a Bet, which stands for Behemot. And when you put these 2 together, it becomes Lev, it becomes a heart, and the value, the amount of the 2 together, Leviathan plus Behemot, equals exactly Ahavat Yisrael. And when these 2 come together, the Leviathan and the Behemot, whose initial letters spell the heart, the Jewish heart, Lev, the value is Ahavat Yisrael, loving of Israel. Right, now, how do all of these ingredients correspond to different cities in Israel? That's what we're trying to lead up to. The 2 extremes, which are the fish and the land animal. The land animal is called Malchut, Alma Di'it Once more, why does it represent halacha? Let's just say a little bit more spiritually what that land animal means. It means that a person is committed, it's commitment to live a shulchan aruch life. That's when you eat meat. It says, even in Tanya it brings that eating meat, eating beef, makes one's mind active and conducive to learning Gemara. Meat is good for learning Gemara. It even says that when you make a sudas mitzvah, like a bris milah or a bar mitzvah, it's good to say. There's one place that says it's good to serve meat. It's a skula that your child will be a big Talmid Chacham in Gemara learning, because meat is good for learning nigla. Fish is good for learning Hasidus, for Kabbalah. You should have both ingredients. But the meat, once more, the meat itself is good for. What does that mean spiritually? Spiritually, it means that a person, from mind down to hands, is committed and is involved, and once more gets chayus from halacha, from nigla, from living a life according to the will of Hashem, benigla, all of the direct, active things that Hashem says in the Shulchan Aruch, how to live. It also, another thing, as it says here on our chart at the bottom, Shor HaBar, the expression Shor HaBar, which means a wild ox. The word wild also means outside in general. Bar, the word bar means outside. The word shor, which is an ox, means to look. Ashurenu velo ata. The word shor is always explained throughout Kabbalah and Hasidut that it means sight, which is very interesting, a connection between the first one and the last one, because the Leviathan, his whole secret of the fish was his eyes. But there's also something very important about the shore, that the shore, the ox, also has to do with eyes, because the very word ox means to look. But what then does the expression, the phrase Shor HaBar mean? It means to look outside. The wild ox, that very phrase that means wild ox, also reads looking outside. What does it mean, looking outside? It's like being involved with current events, being involved with politics, being involved with what's happening in Israel. Looking outside your four amot, your daled amot of existence. Being concerned with what's going on in what's called the outside world. The outside world outside of your house. That's Amadi Iskari, that's Malchus. And this level is called Malchus, which is kingdom. Who is the true king? The one who is totally concerned with what's happening outside. His whole life is outside. The Leviathan, in a certain sense, the one that's under the water, his whole life is called Shashwim Atzmim. It's all an inside life. But the opposite extreme is the Shor HaBar, which is an outside life. So it also has to do with the two eyes, the right eye and the left eye. There's an eye which looks outward, a eye which looks inward. We're looking at one's inside being life and looking at what's happening outside. That's another very, very important secret of these two extremes here in our Sudat Leviathan, the Leviathan and the Behemoth, which is called Shor HaBar. But that, once more, that has to do with Malchus. Why does a Jew want to be committed to the halacha? Because he knows, he believes that by all of us keeping the halacha, we will fix the outside world. This is something very deep in the essence, in the bone of Jewish consciousness, that the Shulchan Aruch was given to fix the outside world. Just like law, just like a legal system. A legal system is given to fix society. So once more, the Shor HaBar has to do with the will to rectify society. That's called Malchus, which means looking outside. That's this phrase Shor HaBar. So now, once more, we have to now try to relate all of this to our cities in Israel. That's what we're trying to get to. The first and the last, which are a pair, the Leviathan and the Shor HaBar, have to do with two elements which simultaneously manifest themselves, reflect themselves in Yerushalayim. The inner dimension of Yerushalayim and the outer dimension of Yerushalayim. It says that the inner, the Kodesh HaKodashim, in the temple itself, in the temple, which is the heart of Jerusalem, there are also 2 points. There's the point of the outer altar, upon which all of the animals are sacrificed, all of the oxen are sacrificed. That's the meat. The table is supposed to represent an altar. And the meat that you eat is like a sacrifice on the altar. So that sacrifice of those animals, that's called the Mizbeach HaChitzon, the outer altar, which is outside the house. It's under the sky, it's looking outside. All of that sacrifice, which according to the Rambam was about Nigle, there's a machloket between the Rambam and the Ramban. What is the essence of the temple? Is the essence of the temple the sacrifice outside, or is the essence of the temple the Hashrat HaShekhinah in the Holy of Holies inside? The Ramban, who is a Mekubal, says that the essence of the temple is what happens inside. What happens actually inside those Shnei Kruvim are like two, in a certain way, like the Gemara represents two dolphins, because it says in the world to come, it's like the two Leviathan, all the way inside in the Holy of Holies. The world to come, the miraculous stream and river, Ayan mi bet Hashem Yitzei, as it says here, will come out of the Holy of Holies. And the power of the water, the sweetness of the water will be so great that it will sweeten all the salt water of all the seas on the face of the earth. It will sweeten all of reality. But that water, Yechezkel HaNavi says, comes out of the Holy of Holies. And there's something about the Holy of Holies that's like an aquarium. Ve'en kana makom la'archiv. There's some nature about the Holy of Holies where obviously it's a concealed world there. It's a concealed state of being. Those two Kruvim are like the two Leviathanim inside. Whereas on the outside of the temple, in the Chatzer, it's called the courtyard, which is outside the house, that's where the outer altar stands, upon which are sacrificed all of the animals, especially the oxen. So once we're in Jerusalem itself, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, it says, Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, Dvar Hashem Yerushalayim. Mitzion teitzei Torah, Elo hametzuyanim b'halacha. Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim says it goes on the nistar of the Torah, the inner dimension of the Torah. So there are two dimensions of Torah that come out of Yerushalayim. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. That corresponds here on our chart to the first, to the two basic ingredients that once more very often when we speak of the Sudat Leviathan, only these two ingredients are mentioned. And that means for Israel also that the basis, obviously the heart and the capital and the all-inclusive center point of Israel is Jerusalem, Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh. But nonetheless we have these other two ingredients in the middle, Yayin and the bird. It says that Yayin comes from Hebron. And the bird, as we said before in Kabbalah, is always a symbol for Yosef, which is Shem. It's one of those three sites in the land of Israel which were purchased physically and are the three most holy sites in the land. As we were just discussing before we started, that these are, obviously everyone knows that these are now the three most problematic and crucial points in the land of Israel. And it's because very often the other side recognizes, either in its conscious or its subconscious, it recognizes where the power of its enemy comes from. And that's why it tries to take strongest hold on the source of the power, the spiritual as well as the physical power of its enemy. And that's why these are the three places that the other side, that our enemy, that we are his enemy, is trying to take the strongest hold over. They'll hold over Hebron and over Shechem, and over Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh. So once more, by then increasing our consciousness, our dedication, devotion to these three places, we're also, in a certain sense, eating this Sudat Leviathan. Because once more, the ingredients of the Sudat Leviathan are these three central sites. So with this, we'll conclude, and I hope that we'll all have a very, very good meal with all of these.
co-op exploration. Okay. Come on, one more. Thanks. Okay, you alright? Fred, דעת לך, לא תופס.